Recently, Baptist News Global reported that two prominent white Southern Baptist pastors from Texas, Steve Swafford, pastor of First Baptist Church of Rockwall, Texas, and Tom Buck, pastor of First Baptist Church of Lindale, Texas, openly called U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris Jezebel, a label long recognized as a racist slur against black women, a label that suggests that black women are sexually immoral. Both men lead churches affiliated with the Southern Baptist Convention, the SBC. I have found no published account that any other white SBC leader has criticized them for slurring Harris, a black woman of South Asian and Jamaican ancestry. Swafford is a member of the executive committee for the SBC. Ronnie Floyd is president and CEO of the Southern Baptist Convention and head of the executive committee. I have found no report that Floyd has publicly criticized Swafford and Buck's statement. The SBC has affiliations with six seminaries led by the following academically credentialed Southern Baptist white men. Jeff Org, IORG, is president of Gateway Seminary of the Southern Baptist Convention in Fremont, California. Jason K. Allen is president of Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Kansas City, Missouri. Jamie Drew is president of New Orleans Baptist Seminary in New Orleans, Louisiana. Daniel Aiken is president of Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary in Wake Forest, North Carolina. Albert Moeller is president of Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, the oldest and largest of the SBC seminaries. Adam W. Greenway is president of Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, Texas. None of these white Southern Baptist seminary presidents has publicly criticized Swafford and Buck for their racist slur. However, on November 30th, 2020, only several weeks ago, they issued a joint statement declaring that critical race theory and intersectionality are, quote, incompatible with the Baptist faith and message, the SBC creedal statement. Perversely, the leaders of SBC seminaries criticized exposing and denouncing white supremacy, racism, sexism, and oppressive conduct associated with those belief systems, but have yet to find words to criticize racist misogyny. Russell Moore is president of the Southern Baptist Convention Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, the ERLC. Moore has not publicly criticized Swafford and Buck's statements, to my knowledge. Leslie A. Livingstone is president of Baylor University in Waco, Texas, the oldest and largest Baptist institution of higher education in the world. Baylor, founded in 1845, the same year that the SBC was founded by white slaveholding Baptists, is viewed by white Southern Baptists and by white Baptists generally, the same way Southern Methodist University is viewed by white Methodists. The founders of Baylor and the Southern Baptist Convention insisted, meaning that they preached, taught, and practiced, that enslaving Africans was compatible with the teachings of Jesus. I have found no report that Linda Livingstone, the president of Baylor University, has criticized Swafford and Buck for slurring Vice President Harris. Todd Still is dean of the faculty of the G.W. Truett Theological Seminary on the Baylor University campus. Truett Seminary was founded in 1991 by white Baptists who left the Southern Baptist Convention. one might expect the leader of Truett Seminary to have enough moral clarity, ethical courage, and cultural competence to denounce racist slurs by Swofford and Buck. I have found, however, no report that still has done so. Pamela Durso is president of Central Baptist Theological Seminary in Shawnee Mission, Kansas. Pamela Durso is a white woman affiliated with the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship, a group that broke away from the SBC 30 years ago. Because Central Baptist Theological Seminary awarded me an honorary degree and made me an honorary alumnus, I searched for news that Durso denounced the racist misogyny against Vice President Harris. I have found no such news reports. Hence, it appears that white Baptists who left the SBC, which now deserves to be known as the Slaveholder Baptist Convention, 3 decades ago, and the white Baptists they left are equally incapable of criticizing racist slurs against the Vice President of the United States, who happens to be a black woman. We should not ignore the moral, ethical, professional, and cultural implications of what Swofford and Buck said. Also, we should not ignore the moral, ethical, professional, and cultural implications of what other white Baptists have not said, whose moral incubator, a term I learned from Dr. Samuel DeWitt Proctor, which is now called spiritual formation, was shaped by life in the SBC and who now lead education institutions, including theological schools. We should remember Swofford and Buck for their racist misogyny. And we should remember the white Baptist denominational, seminary, and university leaders whose SBC-shaped moral incubator and understanding of the religion of Jesus is so flawed that they are comfortably silent about blatant racism and misogyny at a black woman. Their statements and their silence demonstrate cultural incompetence, meaning they lacked the knowledge and skill required to recognize and effectively navigate cross-cultural events, situations, and experiences to accomplish beneficial, meaning just, or right outcomes. There are 6 levels of cultural competence. At the lowest level, cultural destructiveness describes intentional behaviors, practices, and policies that produce adverse cross-cultural results. Swofford and Buck engaged in culturally destructive conduct. It was intentional. It is unjust. The same was true, and is true, of white Baptist leaders who intentionally have been silent despite knowing what Swofford and Buck said. The next level up is cultural incapacity, which describes unintentional behaviors, practices, policies that produce adverse or unjust cross-cultural results. Cultural incapacity fits white Baptist leaders whose silence about what Swofford and Buck said is unintentional. The next level up is cultural blindness. Cultural blindness describes behaviors, practices, and policies that are insensitive to cross-cultural realities of behaviors, practices, policies, and situations, and their unjust results. This term applies to people who fail to recognize the racism and the misogyny involved in calling a black woman Jezebel. The next level up is cultural precompetence. Cultural precompetence describes behaviors, practices, and policies that recognize cross-cultural realities, yet are incapable of navigating them effectively. People who sense that what Swofford and Buck said was racist and misogynist, but who are unable to effectively respond to the cross-cultural, cross-racial realities of their statements, their racist and misogynist statements, are culturally precompetent. Cultural competence describes the knowledge and skill involved in recognizing and effectively navigating cross-cultural events, situations, experiences, and realities. Culturally competent people know how to recognize and skillfully navigate the cross-cultural realities of what Swafford and Buck said and can effectively work to produce outcomes that are fair. The highest level is cultural proficiency, which describes the knowledge and skill involved in recognizing and effectively navigating cross-cultural realities so that behaviors, practices, and policies are benchmarks for how to address them. Culturally proficient people know how to recognize and skillfully navigate the cross-racial realities of what Swafford and Buck said, and can set benchmarks and standards that would govern the cross-racial realities of their conduct so as to be instructive and mentoring for others. Based on that scale I just mentioned, cultural incompetence includes conduct that is culturally pre-competent, culturally blind, culturally incapacitated, and culturally destructive. Now, competence is always a function of knowledge and skill. It is never a function of intention, good or bad. Because people are never evaluated on how well they do things based on their intentions, but on the results of their actions. It does not matter what Swafford and Buck intended by their statements, nor does it matter what anyone else intended who failed to denounce their statements. We do not excuse people who drive poorly because they mean well. As I reflect on the reactions of these white Baptist leaders, men and women, and the racist statements Swafford and Buck made about Vice President Harris, I am reminded of what Jesus said as he concluded the Sermon on the Mount. At Matthew's Gospel, chapter 7, verses 21 to 23, the New Revised Standard Version reads, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, didn't we not prophesy,' meaning preach, 'in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and do many deeds of power in your name?' Then I will declare to them, 'I never knew you. Go away from me, you evildoers.'" Consider another rendering of that passage from the Message. Knowing the right password, saying "Master, Master," for instance, isn't going to get you anywhere with me. What is required is serious obedience, doing what my Father wills. I can see it now at the final judgment, thousands strutting up to me and saying, "Master, we preached the message. We bashed the demons. Our God-sponsored projects had everyone talking." And do you know what I'm going to say? You missed the boat. All you did was use me to make yourselves important. You don't impress me one bit. You're out of here. Amen.